So, moving on to the defense, I mentioned in the beginning part of this that when we talk about like the one who knocks on these teams, I know a lot of people will mention McDuffie and they're right to, and they'll mention Chris Jones and they're right to, and I'll touch on those guys as will you. But it feels like they have the best defensive coordinator in the NFL and the best
Without
offensive
a doubt.
coordinator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt. Without a doubt, they do.
We'll start in the back and we'll go to the front, but I know you had some comments and some thoughts on this defensive backfield. What are you seeing with these guys this year
Yeah.
that you like?
Well, to expand on what you just said, what I like is their defensive coordinator, right? Spags feels like somebody who doesn't really have what it takes to be a head coach, but is just it's very I almost don't want to put them in the same sentence, but it's very Josh McDaniels in that regard of like you feel like he's just the best coordinator available, but doesn't really have the chops to be a head coach, and that's okay. That's people's places. Not everybody can be a head coach. And when Spags tried, he wasn't very good. He wasn't god awful like Josh McDaniel. That's why I don't want to put those two together. But when I think of amazing offensive minds, I do think of Josh McDaniel. Obviously, with that huge run with the Patriots and the relationship that he had with Brady, obviously it's forever made him a head coaching candidate. And Spags, I think, probably the same thing happens every year with the cycle, right? It was just like, maybe we call Spags, and to his credit, it seems as if he's just saying, no, I'm happy where I'm at, because he should be. This defense is unbelievable. You touched on it in the beginning of this, which is they went from this offensive team to this defensive team, and that has a lot to do with, mainly it has everything to do with Spags. They lost L'Jarius Sneed this offseason. It seemed like it came down to paying Chris Jones or paying L'Jarius Sneed. They couldn't really afford to do both, so they let Sneed walk. I get why they let Sneed walk. It's a bummer because Sneed he is very, very, very talented. One of the top premier cornerbacks in this league, and you hate to see him go, but when you realize that the guy playing next to him was a first-team All-Pro last year, it makes it a little easier to pay Chris Jones instead of paying L'Jarius Sneed. Trent McDuffie, been in the league 2 years, already an All-Pro. Played way more in the slot last year, but I think is expected to kick it outside a little bit more in certain packages, and kind of take on that role that Sneed left. I mean, he's a little undersized. He's 5'11", so he's not necessarily the length that you want, but he is unbelievable in every other regard. So it kind of, it might not matter. And I do have some notes here on some of these other guys. They're very good at drafting and developing these lanky cornerbacks in the mid rounds, right? They have L'Jarius Sneed was a 4th rounder a few years ago. So they have Jaden Hicks, who they just took. He's a safety, and I was watching some film on Dave Merritt. He's their cornerback. He's their secondaries coach. And they were kind of asking him about the fresh blood in the room, and he was saying how excited he was about having these new guys, and he said that Jaden Hicks had every bit of the tools to be a fantastic safety in this league, which I thought was interesting, right? I mean, you're never going to go out there and necessarily shit on your own players, but it was almost like an eye test thing. You're kind of watching him talk about it. He looked like he was giddy. He looked like he was like, oh yeah, no, this kid's going to be like really like that. And then they also took Kamal Hadden in the 7th round, who is shout out. I live in Belleville, Michigan, and right next door is Ypsilanti, Michigan, and that is where Kamal is from. We have a lot of mutual friends, so I got to give a shout out to the Ypsi boy one time. Proud of you.
Yeah. It's also where I was born.
Straight up, we know it well. That's where we had a lot of fond memories in Ypsilanti. Lived there for many years together, and before with our respected families. So we got love for Ypsi, but Yeah, Kamal was taken in the 7th round out of Tennessee. And again, when Merritt was talking about Kamal, he said he reminded him a lot of Brashad Breeland, who was a one of the key pieces of that 2020 Super Bowl secondary that beat the Niners. So I feel like that's a very high compliment. Hopefully, he doesn't have the personal issues that Brashad Breeland had. So, if you know, you know. But I think that's going to be a really sneaky good pick. Kamal was super good at Tennessee, and he was one of those weird players who, just knowing people who know his family, you heard that he was potentially his agents was telling him it's anywhere from like the 3rd round to the 6th round. It just kind of depends on who falls in love with you. And the Chiefs fell in love with him, which is like, talk about the best team to fall in love with you, right? And then they have some more vet pieces who are super lengthy. I was mentioning earlier that McDuffie lacks a little bit in just pure length. You have Joshua Williams, he's 6'3", and then you have Jalen Watson, who's 6'2". Those are guys that can fill in on the outside any given play, right? So, I guess this long-winded rant is basically just to say that it sucks that you lose L'Jarius Sneed, but I think with the draft picks you have coming in, with the depth pieces that you have, with Trent McDuffie coming off an All-Pro season, and Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo being your coaches, I think you're going to be just fine. This team has proven that they can develop these guys into being, Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber guys. And this is more of a defensive team now. So they kind of got the sticks currently.
Yeah.
I expect them to be just as good, honestly.
No, it's super crazy because I think you talking about Steve Spagnuolo is wild to me, because it's like, I'm so with you about the head coach thing. He doesn't quite feel like a head coach, but
No.
man, ain't it just a bummer for the rest of us that the Kansas City Chiefs
So
are the ones
whack.
who got the best defensive
Yeah.
coordinator that's not really a head coach? It's like, oh, this guy's not going anywhere. Like, he's just,
No.
and I
I
mentioned
wonder
like
what I wonder what sacrifices the Hunt family did to like get this dynasty.
it's
Like, I'm
crazy,
curious
man.
what like whose soul did you sell?
Yeah, whatever Jerry Jones
Because
did in the '90s is what they're
yeah,
doing, because
right.
it's
That's the
wild,
package they
man.
got.
Yeah, and they're not
Yeah,
gonna,
no,
which is a
it is
bummer. Going to be a
nuts.
bummer in 10 years when you guys stop winning, like
Yeah.
Jerry.
Well, and
Uh,
it's such an indictment on Brett Veach and how good he is at his job, right? I mean,
Amazing.
it's I
Amazing.
think it's hard to put any single GM above him in the league. Even as like a Lions fan who has watched Brad Holmes take this dumpster fire franchise and really build it up into a true contender, I'm so prone to say, "Oh, I have the best GM in the league," but Brett Veach is just over there laughing at me in the corner, saying like, "No, you don't." Like that's just
Right.
how it goes. He's just like, "Nah, you don't. I'm the best. I'm the best in the league." It's like, yeah, you are, but like, shut up. That's
Yeah,
how
and,
I feel about it.
even when he misses he hits, right. You got like the
Yeah,
2022
100%.
draft, and everyone's like, "Oh, Sky Moore's a bust." Sky Moore, and by the way, I didn't mention him in my
Yeah,
wide receivers. He is a bust. He's a
he is.
Michigan
Yeah,
guy, a Western Michigan guy, so he's a
yeah,
friend of the show. So I kind of wanted to like. I was
definitely a friend of
hoping
the
he would have
show.
a career, but it's not going to happen. He
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah,
But
yeah. He
he
does.
missed on him in the second round. But then you get Isaiah
Yep.
Pacheco in the 7th round, who is like a
Yeah,
really
right.
good running back.
Exactly. No,
Totally a
exactly.
starter, and he just
Yeah.
reached right above Clyde Edwards-Helaire and took
Sure.
that job. So
Yeah.
you're right about Brett Veach, and I mean, in no area is the GMing of Brett Veach and the coaching of Steve Spagnuolo more apparent than this front seven. To be honest with you, I mean, for me, it feels like this unit is only going to get better, which is really scary because they were very good last year. Um, Steve Spagnuolo has kind of really maximized this usage of this kind of like too deep, too high safety look, where that he like disguises the coverages, and a lot of times he'll run a cover zero. He one thing you didn't mention about the defensive backs is that Spags blitzes like corners all the time, and they're like really good at getting sacks, and the safeties, and he'll blitz a safety and disguise it. It's a cover zero, but it looks like a cover three. The disguises are crazy. And it's a big reason why, because of the confusion. Again, all you have to do is look at what they did against Miami in the playoffs and what they did against Baltimore. It's really, really impressive, the coaching that Steve Spagnuolo is doing. But the thing is, they led the league last year in unblocked pressures. And that's largely because of Spagnuolo. It's because of these linebackers. So that means that out of every team in the NFL, they had the most pressures of the quarterback that were unblocked. So guys just getting loose, like no one blocked them. Not guys winning, guys just running in the backfield free, which is a testament to coaching. And it's really scary because when you look what this offense can do, this defense can keep this team in any game. And when you have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, you're screwed if this defense gets cooking. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like depressing, honestly. And the thing is, I talked about like Andy as like Freddy versus Jason. I don't know if Spags and it's Freddy versus Jason. I don't know who's Michael Myers. I don't know who's who, but it's a lot of just scary, cartoonish villains that are coaching this football team and on this front seven. Obviously, the big guy is Chandler Jones, who signed a 5-year, $158 million deal last year. Well deserved. I mean, he with Aaron Donald being out of the league, he's the best defensive tackle in football. Let's be honest. Dexter Lawrence can get a word in. There's a couple guys in that conversation, but to me, it's him because he plays on the best team and now the best defense, so he stands above Dexter Lawrence. But his ability to crowd, to draw all this attention from offensive coordinators in the middle of the field opens up all these other guys. I mentioned the 2022 draft a minute ago, but the guy they drafted in the first round from Purdue, George Karlaftis, he's getting better and better. Like, I'm getting kind of scared of what he's going to do. This was a team that was 9th in tackles for loss last year. George Karlaftis was a big part of that. He had 10.5 sacks. I expect that number to go up this year. I'm sorry for everybody listening who's not rooting for the Chiefs, but I'm just being honest. Like, I'm starting to see like glimpses of special with Karlaftis. Like, he looks really, really good.
Yeah.
And I
Me
think
too.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um,
I do.
yeah, you just start to see it after a while. A guy that I really wanted to give some praise on too, who I see used a lot in these blitzes, is Nick Bolton, the starting middle linebacker. He missed some time last year, but he was really pivotal in the second half of last season in that playoff run to this team. Like, he's the leader of this defense. He's the green sticker. He's the middle linebacker. There's a lot of debate right now amongst Chief Kingdom, whatever whatever it is, Chief fandom.
Yeah,
Um,
Chiefs Kingdom. Yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm talking. I just it feels cringe saying it. I'm not a part of it, so it's
Yeah,
like
it does.
weird.
I hear you.
It's like one pride with the Lions. It's like, don't say it unless you're
Yeah.
in it. Like, even
Yeah,
then,
fully.
it's
Yeah,
cringy.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But you know what I mean. Chiefs Kingdom. They're talking about. There's a lot of debate right now whether or not they should pay him, and some fans feel like, he's not above replacement, and a lot of other fans feel like, um, you know, he is. He can't be replaced. He's a leader on this defense. He's a stud. I'm somewhere in the middle on him. I tend to lean a little more towards the pro Nick Bolton side. Obviously, like, aside from what he did in the Super Bowl of, like, the forced fumble on Jalen Hurts, return for a touchdown, he lacks elite speed. So I understand why people say that. Like, he can get got. He's not great in space, but the last in 2022, the last season he played 17 games because he did miss some games last year, so I didn't include it. He had 180 tackles and 108 solo tackles in that season. You just don't make that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy. And for me, I think if Nick Bolton can stay healthy this year and do what he did in 2022 and kind of what he started to do in the playoffs, if Karlaftis can take a step, Chris Jones is who he is, and one or two guys can kind of emerge on this front seven, even just one, if it's one guy. With what Spagnuolo does with the secondary, with how creative they are, I don't see how there's a world where this isn't a top 5 defense again. Like, I just think they're going to be a top 5 defense again.